Chapter 3. The First Shot. Discovering a lifelong talent. A life begun in hardship. A talent born of necessity. The legend of Annie Oakley. One of the most remarkable sharpshooters in history, is often told in terms of dazzling feats and celebrity. But her journey began not in the limelight, but in the deep shadows of struggle. For Annie, picking up a rifle was never a matter of sport or recreation. It was a matter of survival. At just 8 years old, Annie was thrust into a world that demanded resourcefulness and courage. The loss of her father and stepfather left her family teetering on the brink of destitution. Food was scarce, and the threat of losing their home loomed large. With her mother and siblings depending on her, Annie's introduction to shooting was born out of sheer necessity. The first shot, a painful beginning. Annie's earliest forays into hunting were not without mishap. Her father's old Kentucky rifle, heavy, unwieldy, and meant for a grown man, not a slight young girl, was her only tool. Her first attempt at firing the weapon ended painfully. The rifle as recoil slammed the stock into her face, breaking her nose and serving as a harsh initiation into the world of marksmanship. But Annie was not deterred. Where others might have abandoned the endeavor, frightened or discouraged by the pain, Annie's resolve only grew stronger. She saw in this awkward and powerful tool a chance to change the fate of her family. If she could master it, she could put food on the table and perhaps even turn their fortunes around. Practice, perseverance, and a natural gift. Undaunted by her early mishap, Annie began to practice with her father's rifle, learning through trial and error how to steady her aim and absorb its kick. She ventured into the woods of rural Ohio, stalking rabbits, squirrels, quail, and other small game. Each successful hunt brought not just a meal, but a sense of accomplishment and growing confidence. Annie's talent soon became apparent. She possessed a rare combination of steady nerves, sharp eyesight, and instinctive timing. The locals took notice. Her shots rarely missed, and when they did, she learned from her mistakes. Annie herself would later reflect, "I don't know how I acquired the skill. I suppose I was born with it, but natural ability was only part of the equation." Annie's relentless practice, her keen powers of observation, and her deep respect for the animals she hunted all played a role in forging her legendary marksmanship. Turning skill into survival. Feeding the family. With every successful hunt, Annie brought home more than game. She brought hope. The meat she provided supplemented the family's meager meals, ensuring that her mother and siblings did not go hungry. But Annie's ambitions soon grew beyond merely feeding her own family. Recognizing the value of her catch, Annie began to sell the birds and animals she hunted to local grocery stores and restaurants in Greenville, Ohio. Her reputation for clean, skillful shooting meant that her game was prized. It arrived unspoiled and ready for the kitchen. Word spread, and soon Annie was supplying not just her hometown but hotels and restaurants in Cincinnati, a full 80 miles away. This was no small feat. The logistics of getting fresh game to distant markets required planning, stamina, and a business sense that belied Annie's young age. She worked with local storekeepers, including a local grocery owner named Charles Katzenberger, who helped her find buyers in Cincinnati. Annie's mother, Susan, would sometimes accompany her on trips to town, proud of her daughter's growing role as breadwinner. A young entrepreneur. From hunter to provider, Annie's marksmanship was only one part of her success. She quickly developed a reputation for honesty and reliability. She delivered what she promised, and her game was always in excellent condition. Local businessmen began to rely on her to supply their kitchens, and her earnings steadily increased. As Annie's skills sharpened, so did her understanding of business. She learned how to negotiate prices, how to package and deliver her catch, and how to manage the small but crucial sums of money she earned. Every dollar went toward the family's survival, toward food, clothes, and most importantly, the mortgage on their home. By the time Annie was 15 years old, she had accomplished what many adults might have thought impossible. Through her shooting and business acumen, she managed to save enough money to pay off the $200 mortgage on her mother's house. This act, born of determination and love, lifted a crushing burden from her family's shoulders. Annie had not just provided for her family. She had secured their future. Community recognition. The rise of a local legend, Annie's feats did not go unnoticed in Greenville and the surrounding towns. Stories of her uncanny marksmanship began to circulate. Tales of a young girl who could shoot the eye out of a squirrel at 100 paces, or bring down a running rabbit with a single shot. Community members marveled at her abilities, and local newspapers occasionally mentioned her exploits. But Annie remained modest about her achievements. She never boasted or sought attention. Her primary motivation was always to provide for her family and to maintain the dignity and self-respect that had sustained her through years of hardship. Her reputation, however, continued to grow. Local hunters and marksmen began to challenge her to friendly shooting contests, eager to test their skills against the young prodigy. Annie's victories in these competitions only further cemented her status as a local legend. A girl in a man's world, it's important to remember the cultural context of Annie's early years. The world of hunting and shooting was dominated by men. Women and girls were not expected or encouraged to handle firearms, let alone excel with them. Annie's success defied expectations and broke down barriers, challenging the rigid gender roles of her time. Her presence in the woods and at the market was a quiet revolution. She proved, day after day, that skill and determination mattered more than gender. Her example inspired other girls and women in her community to pursue their own talents, whatever they might be. Annie's legacy as a trailblazer was set in motion not on the stage or in the arena, but in the forests and fields of Ohio, where she first picked up her father's rifle and set out to change her family's fate. The psychological impact, confidence, and independence. The discipline, focus, and self-reliance Annie developed as a young hunter shaped her character for life. Each long day in the woods, each successful hunt, was a lesson in persistence and patience. The solitude of the hunt gave her time to think, to dream, and to build a quiet but unshakable confidence. Handling a rifle, providing for her family, and managing her own business affairs, all these experiences fostered a deep sense of independence. Annie learned early on that she could rely on herself in times of need, and that her skills could make a real difference in the lives of those she loved. A family united by hope. Annie's success as a hunter and provider brought her family closer together. The Moses family, once on the brink of being torn apart by poverty, found new strength and unity through Annie's efforts. Her mother, Susan, could finally breathe a little easier, knowing the roof over their heads was secure. Annie's younger siblings looked up to her, inspired by her hard work and determination. This sense of familial unity and purpose would remain with Annie throughout her life. Even as she achieved national and international fame, she never forgot the lessons of her childhood or the family that had sustained her through the darkest times. A foreshadowing of greatness in many ways, Annie's early years as a hunter and provider foreshadowed the greatness to come. The skills she developed, marksmanship, business sense, resilience, and independence, would soon propel her onto a much larger stage. But it was in these formative years, hunting in the woods of Ohio, that she laid the foundation for her future success. Annie's story is a testament to the power of necessity and unlocking hidden talents. Faced with overwhelming odds, she discovered within herself a gift that would change not just her own life, but the lives of countless others. Her journey from a struggling child to a local legend is a powerful reminder of the potential that resides within each of us, waiting to be revealed in moments of challenge and need. Conclusion: The Making of a Markswoman. The story of Annie Oakley's first shot is more than an anecdote about a broken nose or a lucky hit. It is the story of a young girl's courage, resilience, and unwavering determination to change her circumstances. Through pain, practice, and perseverance, Annie transformed necessity into talent, and talent into opportunity. By the age of 15, Annie Oakley was already a formidable markswoman and a savvy businesswoman. She had secured her family's future and earned the respect of her community. Most importantly, she had discovered a lifelong talent that would one day make her a legend. As Annie herself said, "I don't know how I acquired the skill. I suppose I was born with it." But those who know her story understand that her greatness was forged not just by fate, but by the fire of adversity and the strength of her indomitable spirit.